Hello everybody, my name is EK and welcome back to my channel. Now, the last 10 hours or so I have spent playing the Server Slam event in Diablo 4. Now, this video, it's not really scripted. I just want to point out my initial thoughts about the game and how it compares to other games that I've played. I have written down a bit of a list with some topics that I want to cover, but this is not going to be a formal review with me writing down a script or anything. I'll just be rambling into the microphone for a while. Now, if that is the sort of video that you enjoy while there are some gameplay rolling on in the background, then yeah, great, stay around. If that's not your cup of tea, well, there are probably many reviews that are more scripted and probably shorter as well, because that's just not my style. Anyway, let's hop into it. So, first, I want to just quickly talk about my limited experience with Diablo. I currently own Diablo 2, well, the remastered Diablo 2 game. I own Diablo 3. And I own, well, I have played Diablo 4 beta. Obviously, nobody owns the game just yet. In Diablo 3, I've probably put about like 10 to 15 hours or so. Diablo 2, I've put a couple hours. And then Diablo 4, I've now put like 10 hours into it. So my familiarity with Diablo as a game is that I've known the game for a very long time. And I've seen a lot of gameplay of it. But I've actually spend more time playing it competitors. I have played a decent amount of Grim Dawn, probably somewhere like 40, 50 hours or something of Grim Dawn, which, as far as I have been aware for the past couple of years, Grim Dawn is kind of the spiritual successor in a lot of people's opinions to Diablo 2, where it's kind of what Diablo 3 was supposed to be, but then Diablo 3 became more arcadey. So I guess it's very similar, and I have really enjoyed Grim Dawn a lot, and I'll come back to that in just a bit. And I played Path of Exile, which obviously I think everyone has played Path of Exile. It's a fun game. I haven't really gotten deep into it, but I've played it for a good amount of hours. So that is my experience with this type of game. Now, jumping into Diablo 4, I was kind of comparing it in my mind to mostly Grim Dawn and Diablo 3. I did play a bit of Diablo 3 earlier in the year just because I wanted to get a bit of a grasp as to what kind of game it was. And some of my complaints with Diablo 3 have now been solved in Diablo 4. So if you're similar to me and you're like, Diablo 3 looked kind of cool, but it felt kind of arcadey, a little bit too easy maybe, then you're definitely in the same camp as I am. And I'm hoping to alleviate some of those issues or some of those thoughts that you might be having. So, let me go down my list. So first of all, I want to talk about the combat, because the combat feels much better than I felt it was in Diablo 3. And I think a lot of people will probably be disagreeing with me here, because a lot of people think that Diablo 3 probably has better combat because it's a lot more fast-paced, it's a lot more getting to your power level sooner. And I think one of the things that really made the combat system in Diablo 4 feel great to me is the fact that the combat was a little bit slower, or at least it started out a little bit slower. And this meant you actually got some time to really start, seeing what your skills do. Your pickups felt more rewarding because I felt like there were slightly less pickups on the floor. The difficulty was also slightly higher. I was playing on, I think they call it World Tier 2 or something. It's like the second difficulty out of 4. It's the highest difficulty you can play on. I think most people went for that. But it was really fun because the game wasn't particularly difficult. I was playing Druid initially to level 9, and then I decided I wanted to try a Sorcerer as well, which I ended up enjoying probably a little bit more, and I ended up level capping, which is level 20 in the beta. I did all the things I wanted to do on the Sorcerer, and I'll probably roll a Sorcerer in the main game as well. But yeah, my experience has been, leveling a Sorcerer and a bit of a Druid, and it's not been difficult. I have died once in the entirety of Act 1, which was during a boss fight where I was poorly equipped to deal with the mechanics of the boss fight. But generally, I never really felt in that much trouble. But having said that, I felt in a lot more trouble, or I felt a lot more pressured in Diablo 4 than I ever did playing Diablo 3. Like in my 10, 15 or so hours of playing Diablo 3, I tried playing at the highest difficulty available to me, which I can't remember what it was, but hard or something. And it was still like face roll easy. I just spammed whatever ability. Everything died. I was regening like a beast. I was just spinning to win. I was playing a barbarian. And a lot of people enjoy that. a lot of people really enjoy that. And it's great, I think, when you gradually get to that point where you're able to do that at some point after having grinded for it for a very long time. But I myself, I like humble beginnings. You know, I like having 1, 2, 3 mobs on the screen at once initially, taking them down, and then at some point, you know, like you'll start dealing with bigger groups and bigger groups and bigger groups, and you'll struggle dealing with those bigger groups until at some point, you know, you get to the end game and you get your build fully set up, and then the moment you have your build fully set up with all the synergies from your skills and from like your gems and from your gear bonuses and all those kind of things, they all come together. And that is when the magic happens. That is when you start clearing the screens. But I like working up towards that. And I think Diablo 4, at least so far, up to level 20, I never felt truly overpowered. But I did feel like I needed to take a little bit of time to figure out, hey, which skills work well together, you know, like pick a defensive here, or do I, you know, not pick the defensive, but instead pick the offensive ability, which will then make me, you know, do more damage, so things die quicker, so there's less time I have to try and stay alive. Active defenses are great because there's a dodge button now as well, which every class has. It's great. I quite enjoy that. So yeah, and just in general, the combat, in my opinion, I thought it was much more grounded. I felt it was much better, but it's a bit slower paced than Diablo 3's combat, at least initially, which I very much prefer. Also, in terms of drops, I felt like there were too many high tier items dropping. Now, I think this is very much contrary to what a lot of people on the Reddit were saying, because I did skim through the Reddit a little bit to see what other people were thinking about the game before I recorded this, and I saw people were talking about two things. One, difficulty. Apparently it's hard. I didn't struggle. I'd like a 3rd higher tier that I can start on, which makes me really think about my build. But, you know, maybe I'm in a different camp. That's not the type of game, maybe. But a lot of people were bitching about something that I very much disagree with. And people were bitching about there not being many legendary drops. I think I had like 3 or 4 legendary drops in my first 10 hours. Like, I feel that's too many. I really want a legendary to mean something. And apparently in the previous beta, people were getting, you know, full legendary when the level cap was 25. And, you know, they had like really, really good gear. And to me, that feels really weird, because I don't want to be level 20, which is, keep in mind, level cap is going to be 100. So 20 is 1/5 to level cap. And we all know the power level, you know, really scales up exponentially in most of these games. So, you know, level 20 is probably closer to like level 5 out of 100 in terms of the actual power scaling, because it's all multiplicative and stuff. But anyway, there were quite a lot of rare drops and some legendary drops. And I don't know if there's a higher tier, or if there's like, you know, these legendaries are kind of bad, but there's other legendaries that have like great stats, and you'll find them later on. But if this is the highest tier of gear you can get, which, once again, I'm not sure, I didn't really do the research on that, then it feels kind of bad getting them this early on in the game, because then what is there to get later on in the game? I mean, I'd like, but they're like, the way I like it, I said, you know, it's going to be a rambly video, so, you know, I'm hoping you're enjoying the ramble, because I'm like my first point still kind of like, don't worry, we'll just be like here for 2 hours. You'll see the video duration, like it's gonna be ridiculously long. Anyway, what I like in games, and maybe this is not the correct type of game to want that in, but what I like in games is when I get, you know, all white for like the first half an hour, and then I'll drop one blue, and I'll be like, ooh, that's a blue. And then for the next couple of hours, you know, I'll slowly see more and more blues dropping. So at some point, like 10, 15 hours later, like, wait, is that a yellow? And I'll get a yellow, and I'll be like, ooh, a yellow, nice. And then every time I get another yellow at that point, you're like, ooh, another one. And you'll slowly upgrade. But what I feel like these games often do, I don't like, is they'll be like, so yeah, you've kind of now unlocked the yellows. Now like a quarter of all your drops are yellows. And you're like, well, now it kind of loses all meaning. That is kind of unfortunate. And in some games, that's fine. But when it's a game that's all about the loot, I like my loot to mean something. And maybe I'll come back around to this, because maybe there will be other things that I'll be really excited for in the later parts of the game. But currently, this is something that I don't like, and I've not liked other similar kinds of games. All right. Moving on. A quick one. The aesthetic. I think the aesthetic is really, really good. The aesthetic, from what I've understood, is very similar to Diablo 2. The aesthetic is also quite similar to Grim Dawn, but I do think that Diablo 4 kind of pushes what Grim Dawn already does quite well to another level, and it just, in general, it looks really good. It sounds really good. It just plays well. Everything feels like it belongs in the world. There is the whole kind of like you use your spacebar to dodge, but you also use it to climb obstacles or like drop down a ladder or climb on a ladder or jump over something. And it doesn't really add anything gameplay wise. Well, I mean, it adds something gameplay wise by locking off certain areas because you have to like loop around and use the like climbing things and stuff. But besides that, I think it mostly just it makes the world feel a bit more 3D because there's more height to the world. Where often these games feel kind of like it's a flat plane, and I think that's kind of solved by using the system when there isn't um, an actual jump button in terms of your height. You can dodge on a horizontal plane, but you can't jump up or like dodge over something, as far as I am aware. So yeah, I really just like the aesthetics, and I think this adds another layer to the whole. The world looks really good feeling, and I'll probably be showing that in the content that is running in the background right now. Next, game runs super well. My 1080 Ti that I've had since March of 2017, so I have owned this for over 6 years now. It is not even close to being top tier anymore. I mean, a mid-range GPU you can get right now is probably on par, if not better, than my 1080 Ti, which once used to be this super OP GPU, and I was so happy to get it, and I'm still happy to have it. To be fair, it's a beast. But what I want to point out is it's no longer top tier. But I am having no issues running this game at 3440 by 1440. I'm playing an ultra wide, and it runs at. I don't have an FPS meter enabled, but it feels like it's locked at 100 FPS, or at least it's very close to 100 FPS locked. There aren't any like weird jitters. There's no big lag spikes. Everything just runs well, and I like that. Also, on the topic of ultra wide, I'm kind of skipping topics now in my list, so I'm going to confuse myself in a bit. But on the topic of ultra wide, I like the fact that the game runs very well on ultra wide. I like the fact that all the like the CGI cutscene that the game opens up with is in ultra wide. I'm assuming other people just see it with black bars at the top, like you see at the movies. Well, if you're watching a movie that is made from an ultra wide monitor, obviously, and I just see full screen on my monitor, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, in game, when there's in-game cutscenes, I do have black bars on the left and the right side, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but obviously, having had a ultra wide monitor for probably like 5 or 6 years at this point, I've kind of gotten used to it. And when a game has ultra wide cutscenes, it's a welcome surprise. But in general, I've learned to live with it. So yeah, in general, the game just works really well on ultra wide. And I've heard people talk about the zoom level not being great, and people are too zoomed in. I haven't noticed that whatsoever, but then again, I am playing ultra wide, so maybe the game looks absolutely amazing for ultra wide users, and that's a plus for me because I really like this zoom level. I think this is actually kind of perfect. But I can also see, if someone cut off, like a third of my screen or something, then I probably would be bitching about it too. Maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the build craft, because the build craft in this game, I'm almost curious when you look at these kind of games. Is it going to be both very customizable, but also is it going to be overwhelming? Because we all remember, anyone who has played Path of Exile, you're looking into this game and you're an unsuspecting player, just hopping into the game. You're like, oh, I'm slapping a couple things. I wake up on the beach. I get to a town. I level up, and you're like, you know what? Let me press a button. Let me open up this skill tree. It opens up, and you're like, well, shit. What am I looking at right now? And it's the kind of game where, the way I play those games, I don't look at the guides. I just go in, I'll like try and build my own thing. and I'll totally mess it up, and my character will be useless, and I'll need to restart if I ever want to go super try hard. But that's just kind of the way I have been playing those games, and that's fine. But it's the kind of game where if you want to, really do well, and you don't want to be wasting your time, you do have to follow a guide. Now, in Diablo 4, on the other hand, there's two really good things. One is that it is not very complicated. Like the system where you put your points into and you augment your skills. You need a certain amount of skill points used to unlock the next tier. It's a really good-looking system. I did really enjoy it. If anyone has played the game, I think it's a simple system. It might be a little bit too simple in the sense that maybe the customization is a little bit lacking there because there aren't that many combinations you could possibly run, and I don't know what the Paragon levels were going to add, if they add additional skills as well, or if it's just like stat modifiers or something like that. So I'm looking forward to experimenting with that a little bit, but it looks nice, it looks clean, and it is pretty cheap to refund your skill acquisition and then go into a different thing. I have been swapping back and forth from Frost Mage to Electricity Mage, or Air, or whatever you want to call it, to Fire Mage, and trying different things, like, getting a defensive here, getting a defensive from there, getting a Frost Shield, getting a Fire Shield, getting whatever, like trying different skills, also just, to see what they look like visually, because these kind of games, you want them to look cool visually. And I have been allowed to do so. I'm not sure if this is a beta-only thing, or if this is going to be in the main game as well. I'm hoping it's in the main game, because I quite enjoyed it. I was able to freely, well, there was a small gold cost associated with it, but I never felt like it was a hindrance. And maybe it scales up to a higher amount in the late game, and you actually have to start paying a bit of attention to it. But up to level 20, I was able to just refund whatever I wanted. I think under level 8, it's even free, so you can experiment even more there. And it's a fun system, and I'm hoping that that is the system that is not super complicated, but it's fun enough to experiment with. And then your gear, your augmentations in your gear and your gems and whatever other names they have for like all these augmentation systems, that is where the real customization comes in, because then you can combine the skills with the gear. I've seen that some gear gives a certain skill level up, which means that it can go over the level cap, and it costs you one less skill point. And it's been a fun system. I've been having a lot of fun experimenting with it, and anyone who has been familiar with Diablo, it's probably a system that is quite similar to the previous games. I never really got that deep into it, so I can't really judge, of course, how this runs in the end game. But as someone who really likes customizing his own builds, or at least trying to make them work before swapping over to the meta eventually, probably, it has been a really good time. Next up, the story has been really engaging. It is definitely the most engaging story I have ever experienced in an ARPG. Grim Dawn had a really good story as well, I think, but I felt like there was so much reading I would have to do to really get into it. While on the other hand, in Diablo 4, there is so much voice acting, and the story paces itself quite nicely, and there's good cutscenes, and everything just works quite well together, where even though I don't obviously know all the, the backstory from the previous Diablo games, I think there's like 20 different novels or something, and, at this point, there might be like an animated series or whatever, like I have no idea, but there's a lot of content outside of just Diablo 4, but I was able to follow the story of Lilith and Arius, their son, like there's a lot of stuff going on there, and I think they did a good job at getting someone who is not familiar with the universe into it. And actually, they have gotten me to the point where I'm like, I'd kind of like to, look up some lore YouTubers and, try and get into it a little bit more, because I like knowing things about the lore, so I can go in deep into Diablo 4 lore when it eventually does drop. But yeah, in general, the delivery just has been really good, and everything has matched up extremely well with the aesthetic of the maps. So everything has been dark, it's been bloody, it's been grim, it's been kind of, well, I guess sad in a way, but the way the voice actors deliver their lines, and the way the stories are written, and the way everything is paced, it just all blends together quite well, and nothing really stands out as like, hey, this doesn't belong here. That was nice. There is a weird thing as well. In case anyone is familiar or unfamiliar, let me just quickly explain what is going on in the community right now. So there is this big boss, Ashava, I believe is the name. And it's this big world boss that is level 25. And you can kill it. And by killing it, I think you unlock some sort of skin that will then be on your horse or on your mount in general when you get the actual game. I think it's like a little pouch thingy or something. I did kill her. Actually, first time. So, you know, obviously I am one of the best players to ever play this game. But that point aside, I've heard a lot of people bitching about this. People apparently are like, well, I can't get the kill because, you know, it's too hard. It's the boss has too much HP. People are dying. People are griefing me because there's like low levels coming into this area. And I can see that. The way it works is there is this part of the map. And people from, well, any level really who just, you know, happen to walk by, because I think it's connected to like a level 10 area or whatever. Like, I don't think there's like actual level areas that much. I think it's like a minimum level area and then it scales up with you. But it's probably like a level 10 area or whatever. And people can just wander into this boss area. And it does say, you know, it's level 25 plus. But I remember being there at like level 11 and being like, hello guys, you know, what's happening over here? Because at that point I didn't know yet. And they were like, well, you need to be level 20 and there's this big world boss. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll go continue the story for a bit and I'll come back later and then I'll clap it. And that's exactly what I did. And I thought it was really fun. I had a good time killing it. And I guess because I killed it in one go, you know, I didn't experience the whole toxicity where people are like, ah, no, we're not killing it. Like, it's hard and there's a time limit on it because it's, you know, it's a timed cosmetic and it's only this weekend and I can't get it later. So, I mean, obviously I'm happy I got it, but it's a bit of a thing where people are salty. And I'm not gonna lie, having killed it myself, it is kind of funny seeing all the salt around. Maybe I got lucky, I don't know. I was just burning it alive with my Hydra burn build on my sorcerer. I think I might even have some gameplay running in the background of the fight, because I think I did record it. So, I have a couple more points. We're getting close to the end, guys. Don't worry. Don't worry. The boss fight itself had a different camera zoom level. It zooms you out a bit further, which I can imagine a lot of people are like, yeah, this is the kind of zoom we want in the rest of the game, but obviously the game is designed for a certain zoom level, and if you suddenly change the zoom level, then, well, you know, everything just kind of like breaks. But having said that, the way the camera moves during the boss fight is a bit odd, because it kind of forces movement on you when the boss moves a lot, because the camera tries to follow the boss, I think. And then you're kind of like squished towards the boss a little bit, which I think works. It's just probably to make sure everything like looks decent and you can actually see the boss and stuff. But sometimes I was like, wait, well, why am I being like pressured to move here? And I think it works. I think it's just a thing where I have to get used to it, but it's definitely something that I noticed. Two more points that I have written here, and then I think I'll be done. So one of the points here is that the progress you can make in this game is, for a large portion, actually account-bound. You obviously have character progression you can do, and that is a big part of the game. But there is also a lot of stuff that you can unlock account-wide, which, for example, would be some skill points. You can get them by getting a certain reputation system going in certain areas, and then there will be a reward that you're getting based on your personal character. So you'll get experience and gold, I think, which are generally the per character thing when you complete it over and over and over again. But there's also, for the first time you're completing it, there is a bonus to your entire account. So one of them would be a skill point. Another one would be extra potion capacity. And there's probably, you know, bigger, better ones later down the line. But I like that idea because I really like the idea of starting a new character, having completed all those tracks, and kind of having this like little head start thing where I might have like 3 skill points to start with, so I can start customizing my build just a bit earlier than you know, if I did not have that. It is probably not something that's going to be game breaking in the way where, you know, this will totally invalidate older content. But it's just kind of like one of those, hey, it's nice that I get to do this, and it's nice that the game allows me to start customizing my build earlier on, especially because, you know, you already have played through this content, so you've already showcased that you can beat the content, and I like that. And I'm hoping there's more rewards down the line that really reward some account-wide progress that doesn't invalidate old content. Like, I don't want to, you know, have like this old MMO with big rewards kind of thing where you guys have probably played like some of those free-to-play MMOs that are like super old and they're trying to keep people in. So what they do is they invalidate the entire like first 20 hours of the game because you'll get a weapon from like a random gift when you start, and it is better than, you know, the weapons you get for the next 18 hours. And you're like, well, I guess I care like zero about any sort of progression for the next 18 hours. Thank you, game. As long as I don't do that, then I'm perfectly fine with them having some like nice flavorful additions and making it just more fun to roll ults. And that kind of ties into the next point where everything in your inventory, well, not the inventory itself. The inventory itself is character bound, but everything in the side inventory, where you have this inventory for currencies. So you have your gold, and you have some like hobos or whatever they're called, and some PvP currency that I don't know anything about yet, which I don't know if you can even get it at this point, but I'll look into that later when the game actually launches. But there's also this whole materials tab, which I guess is in a way kind of similar to the way Guild Wars 2 does materials, where you just have a list of all the materials you want. And this makes it a lot easier if you are on an alt character to, you know, go upgrade your gear, because, you know, you'll have your high level character and they'll be grinding the gear for you, or they'll be grinding the materials for you, and then, you know, you can use them on your lower level characters to make it easier to just get better gear, because you can upgrade whenever you want, because you already have all this stuff stored. And you can do that when it's not shared as well, but then you have this whole system where, you know, you have to head to your bank or stash, whatever it's called in this game, and you have to put it in there, and then you have to, you know, log into the other character and take it out and then use it, and you're like, oh wait, I'm like 3 short, let me go back and forth. And it's like this whole really annoying thing. And I just like that I can access my entire material storage and my currencies from every character on my account. I think that's a good system. So, in general, those are the points I wanted to talk about. I did not expect to be talking for almost half an hour, but then again, it's just what I do. Hold on, while editing, I realized that I forgot to talk about one important thing, and the Guild Wars 2 player in me is very happy. There is a wardrobe system where you can freely apply any skin to any other skin, provided it is within the same, you know, type of armor or same type of weapon. There isn't a limit on it, and there's even a dye system where you can dye individual pieces, but you can also dye the entire thing in one go in a certain color scheme if you would want to do that. So that is quite nice. And like I said, the inner Guild Wars 2 player in me, who has grown accustomed to that for the past years and years and years, that is very good and very fun, and I no longer have to look like a hobo in leveling gear. Thank you. I'm gonna have to record some more footage, I think, because I don't think I have enough footage for this. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably be picking up, I mean, I'll definitely be picking up the game. I haven't bought it yet. I'm still trying to decide which version I want, but I'm like kind of inclined to just pick up the ultimate version, because at this point, why not? And yeah, I'm thinking about doing some streams as well. I have been streaming this game. If you've been watching my channel, you've seen one video go up. I might upload the other VODs as well. I don't really like uploading VODs too much, but I wanted to have some content on the channel. But yeah, I'll potentially be streaming this game as well. So I'll do a shameless plug here, and if you go to Twitch and you follow EKTech, I'll also put a link in the description. If you're watching this video and you want to watch me play, I'm thinking about just doing like a big marathon stream or something when the game launches. And yeah, I'll just be chatting to you guys, and I'll be having a good time. So thank you very much for watching this video. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you around later. Bye, guys.